Good evening, hope you're well and good. It's Arena Tuesday, so we are going to be turning off noisy adverts in the background. That always helps. Good evening, hope you are well and that you are good. It's Arena Tuesday. We're going to be jumping in and doing what we always do on a Tuesday, which is pick our own arena. So you folks on Twitter earlier in the day, vote for your arena hero of choice. We then take a few simple rules. We then run through a pick as much as we can. If there is a draw, if people live on chat at twitch.tv/FailCraft Cast can't come to a decision when it comes to votes, then I get streamer's choice, jumping in and take a little pick. And that is pretty much it. We try and go for 3 simple rules, and those 3 simple rules are: number 1, review your deck often. Don't just pick 30 cards, try and split it up. Have a look at what you've got at 10 cards, 20 cards, 25 cards, or something similar, so you can assess what you've picked and try and work out what you need to pick. To do that, rule number 2, take a look at spells against minions and then also your mana curve in the middle there. Do you have lots of early game stuff? Is it an early game pick? Have you got lots of late game stuff, 5 mana or above, for example? Or do you have a concentration of cards towards the middle, in which case you might be trying to win in the middle of the game? Understanding where your drops are going not only helps you pick cards that will help you, but maybe smooth that mana curve out so you've got something to play every turn if you need, but also can help you understand how your deck is going to play. And final rule that we try and go by, rule number 3, we play through, we have a think through our deck turn by turn by turn, look at card by card, mana cost by mana cost, just to understand exactly what we can play on what turn and then our kind of play style. So that is us. Between those 3, that will make our deck, but of course, depending on what you folks fancy, it could be a very, very solid deck. It could be loads of wisps and all those kind of things that you fancy as well. So let's jump on in. You folks on Twitter jumped in. We had a bunch of votes for Warlock and Druid. I think Warlock got the vote on this occasion. So without further ado, let's jump on in and do a little bit of picking. So Mana Addict. Whenever you cast a spell, gain +2 attack this turn. Good if we have spelly type cards. We don't so far. However, that's only a turn attack buff, it's not a permanent attack buff. Ancient Mage, a solid minion, and we have a definition of a solid minion, which is, broadly speaking, if its mana cost, attack and health are pretty similar and there's nothing negative in terms of the card effects on the card text, then it's a solid minion. That means that you can play it and it will make some kind of trade or do something broadly handy. Give adjacent minions more spell damage, well, not so bad. And then 2 attack, 5 health, that's actually quite solid, even though its attack is low. The 5 health will mean that it may make some trades. You could make it into a tank, Sunfury, Protected Defender of Argus. So, in Arena, not so awful. Arcane Golem, good for the damage, bad for giving your opponent a mana crystal. These 3 pick looks as though we're going to go for Ancient Mage. May seem like a bit of an odd card, but it'll make some trades. If we get spell damage, it'll buff them. Pretty cool. Bloodflame Raptor. 2/3/2, that's the definition of a solid minion. You can play it, it will make a trade, it will do some damage, it will die, but its stats are all good. Void Caller, interesting. Put a random demon from your hand into the battlefield. This, of course, gives you great tempo. It gives you something for nothing. It's a 2-for-1 in effect, but you need demons in your hand. Dread Infernal, 666, the number of the beast, so Iron Maiden would approve. 1 damage to all other characters, heroes, minions, everything around. Going to cause some carnage when it comes into play. Good if you could combo it with, for example, an Acolyte of Pain. Perhaps good against aggro decks. Between those 3, looks as though we're going for the Void Corner, but we will need to draft some more demons on top of that. Coming straight into our next 3 pick, we've got Haunted Creeper, a brilliant 2-for-1 card. Great for making trades in the early game. Succubus, discarding a random card, not good in the theme of Warlocks. You get good stuff early, but you can also have some kind of setback or negative effect. So this is a very strong card for its mana cost, but you have to discard a random card. Not so great. Then Power Overwhelming. Friendly minion 4/4 till end of turn, then it dies horribly. The very efficient Warlock solution. Play that on a very small minion and you can make an absolutely excellent trade. I'm actually going to go for the Succubus on this occasion. All 3 of these good. I'd like to see if we can put something together with Void Caller, so I'm going to jump in and pick that one. Next we've got Spider Tank, Ooze and Blood Imp. Blood Imp is a demon, absolutely fine. You will get that +1 health. It's stealthed, so it can only be removed if global damage is done to your side of the table. So something that damages all minions, not a specific minion, because stealth, of course, it can't be targeted by hero abilities or attacks or spells. Ooze, King Ooze, 2/3/2, a solid minion. The Battlecry destroying a weapon is excellent, and then Spider Tank, a very solid minion also. Again, all three could be pretty solid ticks. I'm going to go with Spider Tank just at this point in the game to flesh out that curve a little bit. Warlock Raider, throw it down, 2 damage, probably going to die. Simple 1 drop there. Buda Bay Bodyguard, not the greatest tank given its low 4 health, so stat-wise that's a little bit less than a solid minion. It's not really the kind of tank you want, but any Poured in a Storm. Some tanks are always handy in Arena. If you can grab them, generally they'll be handy, because in Arena it can be a little bit harder sometimes to get that removal. It's a bit more random, so tanks can slow things down. Guribashi Berserker is an absolute unit. Whenever he takes damage, gain 3 attack. Generally, as a basic card, not bad, but in Arena it becomes even stronger, particularly if you can damage your own cards, and Warlocks do have that ability. So I'm going to grab the Berserker. He can be quite a tanky threat. Dread Infernal, speaking of damaging your own cards, a nice combo. Guribashi into Dread Infernal. Shadowbolt, 4 damage. Demon Fire, do 2 damage to a minion. If it's a friendly demon, give it 2/2 instead. So we can have a straight up nuke. Shadowbolt, 3 for 4, has kind of been replaced a little bit by Dark Bomb, which is 2 mana for 3 as a nuke. Because Dark Bomb is used more as early game control, but Shadowbolt is still solid enough for its stats. We've already covered the Dread Infernal, and Demon Fire can use as removal, can buff our demons. I like the idea of a demon deck that we're pulling together here. So for the time being I'm going to go for Dread Infernal, because that has quite a nice combo with Guribashi Berserker. Summoning Portal, Shattered Sun Cleric or Flesh Eating Ghoul. This Summoning Portal, your minions cost 2 less but not more than 1. 2 less but not less than 1. A really good way of us getting minions into play fast, particularly if we've got larger minions. So that's what we need to consider. Are we going to go big minions? If so, Summoning Portal could really help us. Shattered Sun Cleric is a more for less. You can trade up 3 attack, 2 health. It's solid for its stats, and that 1/1 on a friendly minion will hopefully let you make some trades. Flesh Eating Ghoul, best if you put it up behind a tank, but whenever a minion dies, gain 1 attack. That can become real large, real fast. So between those 3, I think let's keep the Warlock theme going. There's a good case for Shattered Sun Cleric. Summoning Portal could be hard to pull out if we don't have bigger cards. Shattered Sun Cleric will have more general utility, so I'm going to go for that. Voodoo Doctor, Novice Engineer, or Zombie Chow. Zombie Chow, everyone's favourite early game trading card. You want to make sure that you're attacking minions, not the enemy hero, for when this eventually dies it will restore 5 health to the enemy hero. But great for chipping away at small minions in the early game. Novice Engineer, throw it down, draw a card, die. Pretty much it. And then finally Voodoo Doctor, the battle cry, restoring 2 health, 2 attack, 1 health. And of course healing something up, so not a bad 1 drop either way. In terms of an early game, people love or hate Chow. I'm probably here, but solid enough for trading if we get overwhelmed in the early game perhaps. I'm going to go for the Voodoo Doctor on this occasion. Or do I go for card draw? I'm going to go for the card draw. Card draw in card rooms is always good. Aha, an interesting 3-pick. We've already covered the Blood Imp, Kobold Geomancer for spell damage at +1. A solid minion, 2/2/2, and then the spell damage is a bonus. So if nothing else was any better, Kobold would be a perfectly solid minion to pick, but I like the look of Hellfire. Deal 3 damage to all characters. Brilliant for clearing any mechs, any rushy Murloc-y stuff out of our way. Great for clearing tables in general, so at least 1 Hellfire. Good for some control. We've already covered the Mana Addict, we've already covered the Ancient Mage. The Wailing Soul, to be quite frank, is not good. Silencing your other minions isn't awful. Depends if they have on-table abilities. So we don't want to silence our Death Rattle, for example. Broadly speaking, stay away from that. I'm going to grab another Ancient Mage. Bit odd to have 2 of those, but hopefully we can draw into a Sun Fury or a Defender of Argus, something that will help us with those. Mech Warper, Magma Rager, Archmage. Magma Rager, statistically, if you play this card in Hearthstone, you are most likely to lose a match after playing that card, I believe, is the Hearthstone stat from BlizzCon last year. So we're going to avoid that one. It's fairly obvious that it's low health. Unless you can buff that health up, it's not going to be much use. The Archmage is kind of like Ancient Mage. It's solid. It's a solid minion. Mech Warper, your mechs cost 1 less. At the moment, we've only got the 1 mech, but we might draw into more. Mech Warper is a powerful card, and we're kind of lacking a little bit in the early game. So I'm quite happy with Mech Warper. Next up, Mad Bomber, Nightblade and Wisp. Wisp, a favourite of everyone on the stream. ! Wisp. But otherwise, a little bit challenging in terms of doing anything hugely useful with it. Mad Bomber, always good for a bit of damage. 3 damage between all other characters, and is just generally fun. Nightblade, 3 damage to the enemy hero for a 5-drop with 4/4. So how are we looking in the early game? Not too bad, could be a bit stronger. I'm going to go for a Nightblade, and we can always pick a little bit more early. A Neutron, Gurabashian, Salty Dog. Salty Dog, its health is low. It is not a solid minion, because although it has high attack, the health means that it's quite easy to remove at that 5 mana point in the game. A second Berserker could be very strong. As a third pick though, for the time being, I think we're going to go for an Neutron early game tank, plus we've got the Mech Warper that can pull it in, we've got a little bit of mech synergy there, which is very nice indeed. Soulfire, 4 damage, discard a random card. Shadow Bolt, 4 damage to a minion only. Can't do it to the hero, which we've already covered. Stoneskin Gargoyle is an interesting card. Great if you combo it with Hobgoblin. At the start of your turn, restore this minion to full health. So you can chip away with stuff, but generally it's more effective if it's got higher attack and higher health. So between those three, I think we will probably go for... an overall nuke might just be good. I'm feeling the Shadow Bolt because we've got nothing to buff the Gargoyle with at the moment. Soulfire, great mana efficiency wise, but the discard is a bit dangerous. Let's go for consistency in the form of Shadow Bolt. We've already covered Bomber. Storm and Champion is a great finisher. I'm actually going to grab the Ogre Brute. 7/6/6, and other minions 1/1. If we have table control, that will help us win. The Ogre Brute, 50% chance to attack the wrong enemy, but 3 mana, 4 attack and 4 health. That can really wreck the enemy's table. If it doesn't hit them in the face and it removes one of their minions, you're very happy with that indeed. Corruption, choose an enemy minion at the start of your next turn, effectively at the start of your turn, destroy it. The problem with that is that it's very slow acting, but not awful. Brewmaster, you can pick something up in hand which acts effectively as a heal, or you can reuse a battle cry. We have not huge amounts of beneficial battle cries, but it's a solid minion in itself. And good evening, Sparta. So finally we have a Spellbreaker, 4/4/3 and a random silence. Well, not a random silence, silence a minion of your choice. I like silences, the stats are reasonably solid. Brewmaster is also solid, but we'll grow a silence in there for utility. Kobold, Geomancer, Mortal Coil and Stranglethorn Tiger. Geomancer we've already covered. Mortal Coil, deal damage to one, draw a card. Stranglethorn Tiger, stealth 5/5/5, a solid minion indeed. I'm going to go for that to bulk up the mid game. Good evening Sparta, good evening Overlord, welcome to all of you joining us on the stream. Next we've got a Gnome Regan Infantry, a Dark Bomb, or a Kobold Geomancer. So we have Dark Bomb for the control, Gnome Regan Infantry, charging and taunting again, one of those cards. Quite a few in Goblins vs. Gnome seem to have been made with Hobgoblin in mind. Hobgoblin, if you play a 1 attack minion, it buffs it by +2 attack, +2 health. Very, very solid indeed. However, charging and taunting for 1 and 4, not the most useful thing in and of itself. Then we've already covered the Geomancer indeed. Dark Bomb gets the nod. Okay, next we've got a Fen Creeper, a Hellfire, or an Ancient Brewmaster. Fen Creeper, a solid tank in ranked, in ladder play. It loses out a bit to things like the Sludge Belcher, the Sen'jin Shieldmaster, but in arena it's still a force. That 3 attack and 6 health is very, very solid, hard to get past, very awkward generally in most arena decks, so it's a good mid-game tank to have to pin your deck together with. We've got 1 Hellfire already, would you like another one maybe? And then Ancient Brewmaster we have already covered. So up to you. We have ignored our own rule about doing a deck review, but we may as well do one now. We'll get a couple in. Okay, 18 cards through. While you folk on stream, grab the card that you fancy. First thing, mana curve. Well, we're lacking 1-drops at the moment, but we have a fairly solid early to mid game. Not really a late game deck at this point, so we could look perhaps to draw some more 1s, maybe some more bits in the late game, depending on how our deck plays out. Second thing, let's have a look at spells against minions. We have just the Hellfire. Just 1 spell, so we're playing a very minion heavy style. Arena tends to be that way, but we need to make sure we're dropping good stuff at every point. Final deck assessment point. Let's go turn by turn. Dart bomb we can use to control an early game or whenever we want to control minions. Drop as we see, drop as we see. Mech Warper can let us pull in an Oetron or maybe the Spider Tank. If we pull any more Mech Warpers or Mechs, we can have a nice solid early game start. Fen Creep has been picked by stream, so I'll let those have a look at that while we finish this. Next we have Emperor, Cobra, Fell Cannon, or Questing Adventurer. Ogre Brute, play as we see, make good trades. Shadow Bolt we can hold back if we need to, or trade in the early game. Shattered Sun, buff and trade. Spider Tank, play as we see. Hellfire used for clearing the table. 2 Ancient Mages pretty much just play as we see. If we get a Sun through a Protector or Defender of Argus, it makes those more useful, but we could also draw more spell damage. Spellbreaker, silence any tanks and nasty stuff in the way. Play Void Caller as we see it, and hopefully maybe we could pull a few more demons. We've only got a Succubus at the moment, so we might want to try and pull some more demons for that Void Caller to be worthwhile. Sorry, we've got a Dread Infernal as well there. Play as we see, play as we see, play as we see, play as we see. So we've got a nice strong mid game, which is pretty awesome indeed. Okie dokie. So far, so good. What could we grab now? Well, we've got a few different options. We can reinforce our early game a little bit. It looks as though we've got a nice spread of minions that will all do variously useful stuff at different points in the game. Could go for some more control spells. If we can find any big finishers, any huge strong cards, we can drop those in. Maybe 2 themes we could look at. We could try and draw more mechs to go with our Mech Warper in the early game. We could try and draw more demons because we do have the Void Caller. That might make that a little bit more useful. Okay, Cobra, Fell Cannon, Questing Adventurer. Questing Adventurer, great if you can play a lot of cards after it. Cheap cards will buff it and buff it and buff it. Cobra, destroy any minion damaged by this minion and immediately threat to any big tanks, or indeed big legendaries. When it hits the table, people will try and remove it fairly sharpish. And then last but not least, Fell Cannon, interesting one, deal 2 damage to a non-mech minion, encouraging Warlock mech there. That's actually pretty fun. It's done some hideous damage against me, but of course if you're playing mech deck it does nothing. However, the 3 attack and 5 health make it a solid minion in itself. Chat goes for Cobra. Cobra we shall have. Next we've got a young Dragonhawk, a floating Watcher, or a burly Rockjaw Trog. Dragonhawk, throw it down. If it lives you might do a bit of Wind Furying damage, otherwise it's going to perish. Floating Watcher, whenever your hero takes damage on your turn, gain 2/2 while it's a demon. We can life tap as a Warlock. Naturally this is a Warlock only card, so it could do some useful stuff for us. Solid mid game. The Trog is a nice card too. The Trog cards are all generally pretty solid. Whenever your opponent casts a spell, permanently gain 2 attack, which is awesome. The health is solid, the attack is solid enough as of its own self, but if you do have your opponent throwing spells around, then Trogs can get real nasty real fast. Okay, what do you fancy? 10 cards to go and then we'll get ourselves into as many games in the remaining half hour as we can. Looking like a Watcher. We're going to jump in and grab that Watcher. Okay, next we have Silverhand Knights, a Stone Skin Gargoyle, or a Clockwork Gnome. Silverhand Knight is a good 2-for-1. You get a 2/2 Squire as well as your 4/4 Silverhand Knight. Very nice indeed. And we've got quite a lot. Very well, look at our mana curve. It's almost totally even from 2 to 5 there in the middle of the screen. But it's not a bad pick. We've already covered the Gargoyle. Good with Hobgoblin. We don't have one. And then the Clockwork Gnome, well at least it would give us a 1-drop or a way of kicking off the game. It is a mech, which does synergise with our Mech Warper. So I think the question is, do we want more late game options, or do we want to buff out that little 1 mana drop section? Entirely up to you, good folks. Gnome it is. People fancy grabbing a little bit in the early stuff. Gnome Regan Infantry. Jungle Panther or a Succubus. We've covered all of these, bar the Jungle Panther. We've got one Succubus. Would you like two? Up to you. The Jungle Panther, stealth 4, attack 2 health, throw it down, and if there's no global damage, then you'll be able to jump in and swing in for 4 the next turn. Of course, that 2 health makes it vulnerable to removal, but the stealth hopefully keeps it alive for a turn until you can make some things happen. No regular infantry was, as we've said, good if you have a Hobgoblin. We have no Hobgoblins. Hobgoblin is a mysterious and elusive card. Okie dokie, what's it going to be from these 3? Looking pretty solid so far. Panther, interesting. Okie dokie, we now have a Frostwolf Grunt, a Loot Hoarder, or a Worgen Infiltrator. I haven't had any of these 3. Frostwolf Grunt, a solid minion with a taunt. Loot Hoarder, Death Rattle, drawing a card, then 2 attack, 1 health. If it dies, you draw some card, which is all good. And then finally, a Worgen Infiltrator, stealth, 2 attack, 1 health. Throw it down, and again, kind of like the Jungle Panther, but a junior version. Do you want to stealth it? If you play that turn 1, it's going to live. It's very hard for anyone to do global damage by a warrior on turn 1, I think. It'd be pretty awesome indeed. Card draw is always good. We've got a Novice Engineer for card draw. Loot Hoarder could always be good. And tanks just generally are pretty handy. So there's nothing wrong with having an early game tank as well. We have a very, very early dropping card. The Worgen gets the nod. From Overlord. Next we have a Kobold Geomancer, a Dancing Swords, or a Summoning Portal. This is an interesting 3-pick. The Geomancer has been thrown at us about 8 times by this draft so far, so Hearthstone clearly wants us to pick a Geomancer. Dancing Swords, Death Rattle, your opponent draws a card. Well, again, it's kind of like the Ogre Brute, and then it's great stats for its mana cost, but it has a drawback. However, the drawback's a little bit more major. You don't really want to give your opponent cards unless you can help it. Finally, the Summoning Portal. We actually have a bunch of 4 and 5 drop minions, so for that reason, I'd actually be quite tempted by a Summoning Portal. We've already rejected one of these earlier in the draft, but it could be very useful in getting a lot of our minions out in the mid to mid-late game. So I think there's an interesting 3-pick there. Could quite easily go for any of these. I mean, spell-wise, we've got a Dark Bomb and a Hellfire, and I think there is one more somewhere there. Aha, Portal gets the nod. Next, a Corruption, a Cogmaster, or an Iron Beak Out. I can't spell Iron Beak Out. No good. Corruption, as we said earlier when we saw this, it's the most mana efficient removal, almost. But the problem is that you have to wait a turn, so whatever that opponent can do, they will sacrifice that minion. They will try and make sure that minion does whatever it needs to do before it gets destroyed at the beginning of your next turn. Because that's what happens, you play it at the start of your next turn, you have to wait an entire opposing turn before it gets into effect. But very efficient nonetheless. Cogmaster has 2 attack while you have a mech. We have some mechs, could be a nice little chip damage in the early game, but the vote has gone with Owl. A very cheap silence, and silence is golden, but silences are also very, very handy indeed. 2 silences gives us a lot of nice utility there. Direwolf Alpha, Dragoning Mechanic, or Tinkertown Technician. Direwolf, adjacent minions have 1 attack, a good Morpholess card, throw it down when you've got minions down and you can make some very nice trades. Dragoning Mechanic, a 2-1 mechanical Dragoning, 2 attack, 4 health, makes it Sun Fury, Protected Defender, Argus Folder. We've not seen either of those, we've only got 4 cards left. Could be handy, but at its worst it's a 2-for-1 with a high health pool for, well, a reasonable health pool for its stats, which will let you either with the Dragoning or with the Dragoning Mechanic make some nice trades. Tinkertown Tech, if you have a mech, gain 1-1 and add a spare part to your hand. We have mechs, so that for 3 mana, if you have a mech on the table, then becomes a 4-4 and the spare part, which value-wise, efficiency-wise is really awesome. How many mechs do we have? Well, we've got a Mech Warper and a Noyatron, and a Spider Tank and a Clockwork Gnome. So there's a reasonable chance of us potentially comboing those 2 together. At its worst, it's a 3-3-3. Tinker gets the nod. Next we have a South Sea Captain, a big game hunter, or Demon Hearts. Demon Hearts. Deal 5 damage to a minion if it's a friendly demon, give it 5 vibes instead. Massive for demons. How many demons do we have? We only have 1 demon, 2 demon, 3 demon, 4 demons. So, but it's still a 5 damage nuke for 5, a little bit mana inefficient in that regard, but a brilliant buff for any of our demons. Big Game Hunter, of course, ubiquitous, absolutely everywhere, pretty much a must pick in ladder, in ranked and constructed play at the moment, due to the prevalence of Dr. Boom, or Dr. Balance, as he's known, but also any legendaries with 7 attack or higher. Big Game Hunter removes them in a very mana efficient way. Will we see those kind of cards in Arena? Maybe not so many legendaries, but you will see some big other cards. So it might be a good pick. And then the South Sea Captain, good if you have pirates, otherwise it's a 3/3/3. The effects are gone for the big game. Big game it is. Next we have a Hellfire, a Spectral Knight, or a Bluegill Warrior. We have 1 Hellfire, would you like 2? Remember, we're damaging our hero as well with Hellfire, and also the enemy hero and everything else on the table. So, generally strong clearance. See those Murlocs sizzle in the imagery for Hellfire. Spectral Knight is a solid 5 mana, 4 attack, 6 health drop. Kind of like a fairy dragon, in that you cannot target it with spells or hero powers. It has to be traded with minions, and that's what you've gone for. Bluegill Warrior with throw in, charge and die. We like the Spectral. Next, Siphon Soul, pint-sized summoner, or a Gadget Zan Auctioneer. We'll do the Auctioneer first. The Auctioneer, great if you have spells, and cheap spells. We don't have loads of cheap spells, so it's an expensive 4/4 minion. Really, unless you have a lot of cheap spells you can throw it on afterwards. The mana cost was increased not too long ago to combat some various decks in a balance change, so that used to be cheaper to play, it's now not. Pint-sized Summoner, first minion you play each turn costs 1 less. Well, that's actually not too bad, and maybe helping us lever out some of our minions in the early to mid game a bit quicker. Siphon Soul, a very nice control card. Destroy any minion, restore 3 health. For 6 mana we can remove any big and nasty minion. Pardon me, and there we go, there is our deck. Final review. Let's have a look at our curve. Well, we need to be winning by the mid game. We've got a little bit in the we've got a lot in the early to mid game. Not so much, nothing beyond 6 mana, so we need to make sure we win by the mid to mid late game. If we take a look at spells against minions, we've got a Dark Bomb, we also have a Shadow Bolt, we can then also drop in a Hellfire there, and I think that is it. Bar Siphon Soul, 3 spells, 27 minions. And then finally our turn by turn playthrough. How do we play this? We can play a lot of minions as we see them. We've got a few combos. We've got a demon combo we can try and set off with the Void Caller. We've got mechs that we can try and pull into play with our 1 mech warper. We've got card draw, and generally at every turn we play minions as we see them, perhaps with the exception of the Big Game Hunter, of course, for removal. That aside, the Tinkertown Tech, of course, if you want to try and mech combo it to make it a 4/4. Then our 2 silences, the Spellbreaker, and then at the top of the chart, the Iron Beak Owl. That aside, we can throw everything down as we see it and make good trades. So that's a nice solid deck. So, jumping on in. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. Do forgive me for a slurp of tea. Let's see how this works out. We're going to deck together. Let's see how it works out. Got lots of solid minions, lots of stuff we can throw down turn by turn. And we've managed to call together a couple of small combos as well, so we can always try and set those off. But all in all, not going to be too complicated. We'll go for a mulligan, pick early game stuff that we can play. 5/5/4, we would much rather prefer to have lots of early game bits. Not so. Okie dokie, nothing we can play there. Welcome to Thrash and other folks joining. Good to have you with us. You join us with our drafted Warlock deck as we jump on in and try and get a half-hour of games in. Coining into a Snow Chugger. This may as well be ladder. Okay, Mech Warper. Wow, there's nothing I can pull in with that. We may see a trade, just a straight trade there. So I'm actually going to life tap. I don't care as a Warlock. I don't have a weapon. I don't really care if I get frozen. What I need is to get enough on the table. A A Shadow Bolt can certainly remove that, which is no worry. I could then bring in 2 minions, which could be quite good. We can Mech Warp it into a Clockwork Gnome. Our opponent could remove all of that trade-wise and still have the Snow Chugger left over. I could just nuke the Snow Chugger straight off the table. So the real question here is minions or remove the sort of key threat. I'm going to go for the Shadow Bolt. Okie dokie, so, oh, I almost clicked end turn there. Forgive me for the typing. What do we have from our opponent? We have a loot order, damage to the face, down goes a harvest column. Right, so we want to start getting down stuff that's going to start making some big trades. I don't have a demon, so I don't want to play Void Caller. I could just go straight up for a silence. I'm going to stop the 2-for-1, try and encourage a trade here. A fireball on one of those 2 minions would very easily trade us away. In comes a flame cannon, straight up removal. Very nicely drafted mage deck here so far. Forgive me for the cookie. Okay, so Ancient Mage, we need to start making trades. We're just getting death by 1,000 cuts here at the moment. 2 damage, 4 damage every single turn. And in flies Cone of Cold. It's going to be removing my gnome, going to be refreezing my mage, so I'm actually having a bit of problem here. What I could really do with is my Hellfire. Ogre Brute will help us get table control, and this is where Ancient Mage actually comes nice. I can throw down a Fen Creeper, and that's it. Table stabilised. I've got 2 big chunky tanks. My opponent's going to have to find a different way through, but they've already managed to chip away half of our health. So can we stabilise and come back? I think it's possible. But opponent done a good bit of damage so far. In comes the Acolyte, which of course they can damage themselves to draw cards. In comes a secret. We need to start testing for mage secrets now. So I don't want to play anything too nasty. So first things first, I'm going to check for Mirror Entity with a Mech Warper. There we go. So my opponent gets a free Mech Warper, which isn't ideal, but at least I've got that out of the way. Void Caller will pull in nothing at the moment. I can get the little benefit of the Tinkertown tech. The Ogre Brute would really help me clear this very, very quickly. So for that reason, I'm actually going to go or the Nightblade, the Ogre Brute or the Nightblade. I don't really care about 3 damage to the enemy hero.
So many possibilities.
The spare part could be pretty handy. I'm going to go for an Ogre Brute. It's too risky against a mage with fireballs and spells to take another life tap. I'm going to remove this. So my opponent can, if they wish, decide to fireball, sacrifice both minions to get through that Fen Creeper, but we can see exactly, aha, they don't need to do that now. They can just sacrifice 1 with a fireball, punch their way through. But that's at least, along with the spare part, giving us enough time to get really, really stable. Welcome to Silver. And all of you join us. Ooh, down goes a Soot Spear. Right, well the first things first, if we remove the Direwolf, then that removes 1 attack off both. We're going to probably have to force the card draw here. There's no real tanks that we can jump into. I'm going to go for the card draw to start with. Gurabashi not so handy. 2 minions on the table would have been pretty nice. I've still got a mech, which we can take use of, so I'm going to go for the Tinkertown tech. See if the spare part can help us. A reversing switch, is that going to help me remove any of these minions more easily? It is not. So in terms of trades, what I'm going to do first is get this off the table. What we can now do is hope that the ogre works. No, the ogre's decided to attack the wrong minion. I would have preferred it if he'd actually attacked the Acolyte. So we're still going to take 4 damage next turn at a minimum from those 2 minions, which is not going to be ideal. Going for the trade. I need the table under control. Blizzard, ouch. Solid straight up freeze, can fireball one of those away and then just attack straight to face with the soot spear. So we have been very well controlled in the early game. Now our cards are starting to flow out a little bit more, but it may be a little bit too late. So Void Caller, there's still nothing that's going to help us with that Void Caller. The Gurubashi can become big and threatening real fast, so for that reason I'm going to get that on the table, but we could really do something with something that actually trades away the soot spear for definite. So for that reason I'm going to drop these. This can get removed anyway. Well played. Could mean that they've got a few nukes in their hand. Ogre Brutes, Tinkertown Tech. The Ogre Brutes will get fireballed anyway. So they can only remove one of those. Let's see if the well played is immediately lining us up for a loss. Fireball, 7 damage. There we go, double fireball. It's like we're playing ladder with a control deck. Oh, very well drafted deck there. Spell damage, lots of options there, and we suffered a bit in terms of the early game in terms of drawing all of our stronger cards out that we wanted there. We had a lot of early game drops, but we were unable to make those trades. I think it's the fact that we had 15 damage chipped away. A different option we could have gone for, could have brought in our mechs a lot earlier and tried to trade with minions rather than using that Shadow Bolt and getting cutesy on about turn 3. So I think if I was going to go back and try something a little bit different again, I'd probably go for that. Throw down the mechs and try and trade with the mechs. That would have been a better idea, considering that we're so minion heavy. We don't really have loads of control spells, bar Hellfire. Hellfire would have been good. Okay, we have a Druid, we have lots of early game drops. I like the look of that in general. I'm going to throw back the Tinkertown Tech. See if we can grab a couple more early game drops. Hey, Ogre Brute, absolutely fine. A turn that 2 Ogre Brute or Spider Tank is not to be sniffed at. Okay, nothing from our Druid friend so far. Not going to coin into anything just yet. We've got several nice coin options on turn 2. Ooze will pretty much soften up and remove either of these next turns, so I'm quite happy with the Dark Bomb. That's not going to be too much of an issue, and then we can just naturally curve into those two, I think, now. We could trade minion for minion with a coined Spider Tank or a coined Ogre Brute, of course. But with the hero power, we'd just see that removed. We'd get the table cleared and traded. Nothing too awful about that. Force some damage onto our opponent as well. There we go. Okay, so real question, do we just Dark Bomb for control, or do we throw down a minion and see what happens? Could I actually open up a Wrath there as well. Trade away to the full health and then use Wrath to draw a card. So we'll deny the opportunity to draw a card with Wrath by using Dark Bomb, if indeed they have a Wrath in their hand. In comes a Shapeshift, nothing else done by our opponent. We've managed to happily get away with that for a turn. Here comes another drop. No need to coin into that. I'm going to Spider Tank. Hard to remove. We could coin into a Floating Watcher or similar. We could coin into a Nightblade. Ogre Brute would be an equally strong drop.
I must safeguard the land.
Skewer the Grove does too, setting up a trade next turn. Worgen Infiltration. Right, we could Ogre Brute and Worgen Infiltrate. That will potentially give us the opportunity to trade that away either way. Of course, direct trade there, more than possible. However, we can then swing in, get rid of our little cheap Worgen Infiltrator, and then swing in with Ogre Brute. However, that 50% chance to attack the wrong enemy could be a little bit problematic. Cult Master. There you go. Removal with Claw. And a sacrifice to card draw. Cult Master. I've had a lot of fun with it, indeed. I'm not entirely sure why we're being sorry about that, because I can just take the Cult Master. I get a guaranteed 4 damage because there's nothing else for it to attack. A little bit confusing. I'm going to Nightblade. Floating Watcher. We don't really need to life tap at the moment. I could have thrown down Watcher and then Ancient Mage and life tap next go to get Watcher bigger, badder, and generally kind of nastier. Berserker, well, either way we can remove that next turn. Not too worried about that. Depends if no minions go down. Dalaran Mage, okay. Alrighty, so first things first, let's go for our straight up removal.
This one's mine.
Assassin has assassinated. Now I can try and remove this. If he gets confused, hits the enemy hero. Win-win there. And the reason I traded that way was that my ogre would have actually lived if it had attacked the Dalaran Mage. Okay, so what do we have? We can Gurabashi, and that's a solid option. We could Ancient Mage. Don't really know at the moment. I think dropping the Watcher is another threat. Our health is high. We've got a lot of opportunity to life tap if we really want to. With all of these minions, unless we're jam-packing the table full of them, there's definitely a bit of headroom, even with a Gurabashi next turn, to life tap for 2. Ooh, new Blackrock cards. Okay, let's have a look. Very, very interesting. I have to do a little bit of analysis. New Blackrock cards. Blackrock Mountain, yay, new cards, very exciting indeed. Ren Blackhand, he's already been covered. But that blog is new of today and not too long ago, excellent. Another couple of new cards to take a look at. Alrighty then, we will, we'll do a quick vid of them after this. Let's do a little bit of analysis. Back to the arena. Very exciting new Blackrock Mountain cards introduced today. Okay, so the Anodized Robo Cub is down there. Defender of Argus. Interesting. Making good trades there. However, other things that we can do to punch through. And we've got plenty of options. Right, I'm going to Gurabashi because that would be great against all this small stuff. I'm quite happy to silence. What am I going to silence? I'm going to silence this or this. Silenced Ruleball Cub. Probably going to die anyway. No. Oh, there you go. Randomly trade something else out of the way. And we'll trade that out of the way as well. There we go. So table nicely cleared. Okay, so down goes the War Golem, and this is one for you. Overlord Metal, who in the stream said, we should definitely go for Big Game Hunter. It's actually come off very, very nicely indeed. Okay, I don't mind a Succubus for discarding a random card, but is there anything else that we want to get into play first? I'm going to coin up so we can at least drop 2 things. The Mech Warper is probably least use at this point in time. So let's get the Succubus down, and then if I trade this away, it becomes big and nasty. Health is high, Druid's on low health, we've got a nice solid table. I think the only way we'd really have a huge amount of problems is if Poison Seeds or something hit the table. Okie dokie, Summoning Portal comes into play, we can life tap. Big health restore of course with Healing Touch, not too concerned about that. Dread Infernal. I'm just going to start swinging to face and seeing what our Druid can do to deal with it. comes another big heal. Double healing touch there. Of course, this Jungle Panther can only make one trade. Ah, there you go. Sort of, kind of voluntarily attacking. Ah, there we go. Making a big trade. Okay, so I don't have a problem with life tapping. In comes a Void Caller. Can throw down the Void Caller. And this. And this. A little bit silly in that I managed to burst the own bubble on my Neutron there, which was a bit silly. But that looks as though it should be a win for Team FailCraft. Nice one.
I can see.
Top stuff. Brilliant. So, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're on YouTube, welcome. If you're on Twitch, thanks very much for being with us. Picked a little deck there, gone 1-1. Maybe we'll continue it, see how it goes later in the week. So if you'd like to see more, whether it be 2-minute deck guys, a little bit of Hearthstone, or all the other stuff we get up to, we try and stream 5 nights a week. If you look in the bottom left, you can see the times there. We always tweet on that FailCraft Cast when we're going to go live. You can also see our YouTube archive at youtube.com/FailCraft Casts. If you're on YouTube, brilliant. Like, subscribe, comment, let us know what we can improve, what kind of content you'd like to see. And last but not least, we're also, of course, on Twitch, just there. So thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully see you again for another Arena Tuesday or stream soon. Take it easy.